Hey everybody, Software Dev Jason here. Alright, night number 2. Stripping down this bike. Like I said, I only had a couple hours last night and a couple hours tonight. But we did get the frame all the way stripped down to what you see right there, which is good enough for me for now. My next step before I start taking apart the swing arm and prepping that, I think I'm going to stick just with prepping and painting this first, and based off the results of that, I will determine whether or not I need to just scratch the idea, get it blasted and powder coated, or if I think spray paint that will work. Like I said, I'm not just going to put 2 coats of spray paint or a coat of spray paint on there and call it quits. I'm going to try to do it the right way with spray paint, using somewhat of a high quality spray paint. Anyway, that's where we're at now. Tomorrow, I hope I'm going to start prepping that. To actually prep that, so the first thing I'm going to be doing is kind of a combination of using Simple Green and Purple Power. So that's going to be the first steps for prepping this. Then I'm going to be using, this is the equivalent to like the maroon Scotch-Brite pads. It's a scuffing pad, basically just to scratch that paint up. I'll be taking the grinder to any of the spots that are really rusty and have any pitting, and I'm going to try to kind of feather out the places where the paint's wore and smooth it out. But for the most part, the places where the paint is in okay shape, I'm going to just use a maroon Scotch-Brite pad and with maybe some P80. I'm not sure. It depends on how the Scotch-Brite works. But that's what I'm going to be using to prep that. Then I'm going to clean it up afterwards, and then we're going to be ready to start priming it. Alright, so the next update is this bike did not come with an owner's manual, unfortunately, nor a service manual, and I don't see why it would, because I don't think it was hardly ever serviced. So basically I had no documentation on this bike. I've been trying to scrape together as much information as I can about the bike. I found the KTM site, they're pretty good about listing their owner's manuals. It makes it extremely easy to find them. So I've got the actual owner's manual for this bike. I've also found the spare parts manual for the chassis. Now this is really nice because it shows the breakout drawings or the blow-up diagrams of the different components of the chassis, and also gives you the part numbers for them. So if you're looking for replacement parts, you can usually search for that part number, like on eBay or something, and you can find a replacement part for it, or the OEM part. So that's pretty nice to have. I've been using that quite a bit already. The other documentation I found is the spare parts manual for the engine. It does the same thing. It's got the breakout diagrams for the engine itself and the part numbers. Find one. Yeah, so for instance, there's the cooling system, there is this description for all those parts, and the part number. So I've been putting that together, and it's been helping so far. An actual service manual, I'm looking into that right now. It's actually kind of difficult to find, so I don't know what the deal is with that. It's not as easy as finding a service manual for the Hondas or something like that. Those are really easy to find. Lots of people sell them. I'm not even hunting for a free one. I was hunting for one to buy. I've purchased service manuals for all these bikes, and I was having trouble tracking down one for this KTM 65. So yeah, that's update number 1. A few other things that I've gotten for this bike. It's the only 2-stroke in the building right now. So I picked up a ratio right measuring container. Simply so I can be as precise as possible when I'm mixing. So it's pretty handy to have. Most bottles come with some kind of indication of how much to mix with, and some kind of level indicators on the bottle itself. This is just handy to have just in case, or if you're pouring from a big container or something like that. So pretty nice, good reviews on Amazon. Seems everybody likes them, and it makes it easy to measure depending on the number of gallons. And depending on what ratio you're trying to hunt for. Pretty nice. Speaking of mixing, I've got some Golden Spectro here, pre-mix. Not because it's the best premix out there. I got it because it's what's being run in the bike and what has been running the bike for the last, I don't know how many years. So I didn't want to change anything like this up before I got the bike running 100%. So I picked up a bottle of this. This makes 5 gallons of gas, I think. I don't need 5 gallons of this stuff, 5 gallons of gas mixed with this stuff, but you know, the bike ran fine with it in there. So I'm going to go through this after the bike's running 100%. Then I may switch up to maybe a more popular premix. I think I mentioned that about the front brake problem on this bike. I have a master cylinder rebuild kit on the way. I have a new brake line, front brake line, hand brake line coming as well. All that stuff's on its way in the mail. Now, I've used what's the Mighty Vacs and you know, kind of just traditional brake bleeders in the past, but I've found that the easiest way to bleed the brakes and to put fluid in the brake system and the clutch system is to actually use a syringe with a piece of airline tubing. Now, brake fluid eats through O-rings like crazy, which is why I needed new ones. I had some in the past. I used them to do a brake system, and the O-rings were just shot because of the brake fluid. So these are cheap. You can get them at like a livestock or feed store. They use these to give medicine to like cows and stuff. So I think these are 60 mil. Yeah, 60 mil. Vinyl tubing for the syringes. DOT 5.1 brake fluid. This is what was recommended for this bike according to the KTM dealer. So I picked some of this up. I'm sure it's not the only thing. I'm sure it's more expensive than some other options that work just as well. For the hydraulic clutch, it calls for mineral oil. Now, I know for a fact that the KTM recommendation is highly overpriced. People use almost anything for the hydraulic clutch. So this is 100% mineral oil. People use baby oil. People use, I think, automatic transmission fluid. All kinds of stuff, I think, for this. I'm using 100% mineral oil. This will work just fine. I've got 2 bottles of it. It should last the life of this bike. I've got new tubes, a new Dunlop MX52, 80-112, brand new rear, Dunlop Geomax MX52 front. This is 60-114. So got new tubes and tires. Also picked up a new gas tank breather tube while I was at the KTM store. I noticed that the one that came on the tank is broken. It's broken and it's blue for some reason. Alright, and a couple other things I just remembered that are on their way. It's not everything. I'm going to need some more stuff. I think I mentioned the rear mud guard, the handbrake master cylinder, the front brake line, the O-rings for the bolts that bolt up to the master cylinder. I forget what those bolts are called. The O-rings for that. The other things that I got coming, a body bolt kit. It comes with all the bolts for all the plastics on the bike. Also a 250 piece, like a track pack bolt kit that has all the spare bolts you could possibly need, and maybe enough to change out most of these to begin with. What I didn't want to do, and the reason I got 2 kits, is I want to change out all the external bolts that you can see. I want to change out all those. Now the 250 piece kit comes with what I would call to be like a spare parts kit, is what that is. It doesn't come with enough to do your whole bike, and if you did your whole bike with it, you wouldn't have any spare parts. So I want to be able to do all the bolts on the body and still have a box of spare parts if I need them for in the future. So that's why I've got the 2 kits. Also got front and rear wheel bearings coming, bearings for the swing arm, the steering stem bearings, those are coming as well. I'm also looking at some Excel rims, or my buddy's looking at some Excel rims for me. Uni air filter. That's all I can think of for now. More stuff coming, I'm sure. Maybe a new chain, new sprockets, I'm not sure. Probably new spokes. Man, it's going to be almost a new bike. Dang it. Well, it was depressing listing off everything that I still need for this bike. So I'm going to stop that now and show you what kind of mess I have on my hands here. This is most of the parts that I pulled off the frame. Yeah, some things I bagged up just so I remember what they were. It's like an O-ring for the top of the stem. That's the bearing I was talking about, and that's going to have to be pressed off. This one lifts right off. I felt like an idiot earlier because, I don't know if you can tell, there's usually a like a nut that keeps this bearing from coming out once you take off the top triple clamp. And well, you take off the top nut, and there's usually like a castle nut type thing in there that holds this in. Well, there was nothing holding that in, so I was thinking this was some kind of pressed on washer or something. Dumb, just dumb. Because I took forever looking it up online of how to get that out, and then I hit that bottom triple clamp one time with a rubber mallet and it popped up. So wasted like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get out a bearing that wasn't stuck. That's the bearing that's going to have to be pressed out. Jeez, the more I think about it, the more stuff I probably should get. The reeds and this whole reed valve and the cage and everything, and the intake for it, this piece, it's a little dry rotted. I don't know if you can see the cracks in it. So it makes me wonder if the reed has ever been touched. Anyway, guys, it's getting late. That's all I have time for tonight. Tomorrow I'll start prepping that frame, and we'll go from there.